Okay, our final speaker coming up, someone who's very familiar with St Andrews. Shin Chieh Tzeng is Associate Professor and Head of the Graduate Institute of Conservation of Cultural Relics and Museology at Tainan National University of the Arts in Taiwan. He's also currently the General Secretary of ICOM-ASPAC, ICOFOM's subcommittee for the Asia and Pacific region. He obtained his PhD in Museum and Gallery Studies from the University of St Andrews in 2009. His research interests focus on museology, museum management, and museum marketing. The title of his talk is The Meaning of Local Indigenous Museums Created in Taiwan and Their Role in the Community. Over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shin Chieh Tzeng, and thank you, Professor Davis, for introducing me. Today, I'm going to share with you one of my research topic. It's about a museum and their roles in indigenous community in Taiwan, and which is quite new because right now we only have about 30 indigenous museums in Taiwan. And first of all, I would like to ask everyone, have you been to Taiwan before? Only one, okay. And thank you, Professor Davis. And have any of you heard of the indigenous people in Taiwan? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much, much more. And in order to get you to know a little bit better, so I bring a book, and it's about indigenous people in Taiwan and their costume. So right now there are 16 tribes of indigenous people in Taiwan. So maybe you can have a look here while I'm doing my PowerPoint slides. Okay, so a little bit about Taiwan. Taiwan is located in the Southeast Asia with the population of 23 million people. Although there are only less than 540,000 indigenous people right now. And the indigenous people in Taiwan, actually, they are said to be the origin of the Austronesian and spreading from South Pacific Island to Indian Ocean Islands. So as you can see on this map, we can see the Australia here and Taiwan is here. So as far as you can see the Madagascar and Easter Island. So you can see it's quite a big range. I think these are according to some linguistic research results. So these are the 16 tribes of Aboriginal right now. They are recognized by the central government. Originally, there are only 9 tribes, but recently new were derived from the 9 tribes based on their linguistic characteristics. So you can see this is Taiwan. And if you noticed, most of them, they are on the kind of central to the east side of Taiwan because these are full of high mountains. In Taiwan, we have more than 100 mountains over 9,000 feet. So it's quite high. And the tallest mountain, the highest mountain in Taiwan is almost 4,000 meters high. And they say it's higher than Fuji Mountain in Japan. Back to museum. A museum is a not-for-profit permanent institution in the service of society that researches, collects, conserves, interprets, and exhibits tangible and intangible heritage, open to the public, accessible and inclusive. Museums foster diversity and sustainability. They operate and communicate ethically, professionally, and with the participation of the community, offering varied experience for education, enjoyment, reflection, and knowledge sharing. And this is the new definition approved during the ICANN Prague 2022. So the museum and indigenous people in Taiwan, I think right now most of the collections of indigenous people in Taiwan, they are in these several museums. They are bigger and also with long history. The first one, as you can see, is on the bottom right-hand side. This is the National Taiwan Museum. It has a history of more than 100 years since the Japanese colonial period. They have a very rich collection of indigenous people's artifacts. And the second one is the Museum of Anthropology at the National Taiwan Museum. And the third one is the National Museum of Natural Science on the bottom left side. And in Taichung, they also have a very rich collection of indigenous people in Taiwan. And the fourth one is the National Prehistory Museum in the east of Taiwan. And the last one is a private one. It's called Sui Museum of Formosan Aborigines. And in total right now, the government has funded in total 31 museums of indigenous people. And among them, there are 29 local indigenous museums in Taiwan. After the government established this museum around Taiwan between the year of 2002 and 2014. Additionally, there are another one, it's called the Taiwan Indigenous Cultural Park in Pingdong. And right now, the government is planning of the status of the National Museum of Indigenous People. And it is actually funded by the central government. And it's quite important because right now, a lot of indigenous people, they are aiming to get a job in this national museum, but it's still under the planning, and hopefully it will open in 5 years' time. And when we talk about the 31 museums, you can see those 31 museums, they are spreading around Taiwan from the north to the south. And as you can see, many of them are on the east side of the high mountains or the south of the Taiwan. And actually they are related to their tribes. And I will explain that a little bit later. The 29 local indigenous museums, the majority of them are located in the rural and authentic villages of indigenous people, even though there are several indigenous museums set up in the cities, where many indigenous people move to the cities and make their own living. So I divided those 29 into 20 plus 8 of those local indigenous museums. Originally, the initiative of building local indigenous museums follow a top-down policy and compensated the local residents with a concrete cultural achievement. As a result, 21 of them were built in a rural place, while 8 of them were established in the urban area of the city center. So here you can see those with the red square, they are in the city or urban area. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. They are a little bit different because in those areas, there are no indigenous people or their tribes nowadays. Or if they are from the east side, move to the city center to find their job and for their earn their living. And my research question is, many indigenous communities, they do not accept the goodwill, and some even annoyed by the concrete house or museum. Are they angels sent to the community or aliens for residents and communities? And my objectives. I aimed to understand the meaning of local indigenous museum in Taiwan, and furthermore to find out how this museum play their roles in the community, either in rural or urban areas. As a result, I actually conducted 9 in-depth interviews. I asked those curators in those local indigenous museum, and they are the basis for this paper. But originally I hoped to collect 29 of them, but my time is still quite limited. So so far I already collected 9 of the interviews. So these are the 9 interviews I conducted. Most of them are in the south of Taiwan, because my university is based here, also in the south of Taiwan. So hopefully this year I can go further north or east. And some of my research findings so far, first one is there are 2 types of local indigenous museums in Taiwan. According to Gao, who is also one of my students, he mentioned that local indigenous museum can be divided into 2 types. The first one is the rural community local indigenous museum, where museums are based on the tribal community. And the second type is the urban local indigenous museums, where museums are set up in a new environment with the indigenous immigrant to the cities. So as you can see, they are quite different. This is the urban type, this is the rural community type. And normally the urban type, they are in big cities like Taoyuan or Taipei City. The rural community type, they are very close to the tribal communities. And on the good side, for those local indigenous museums, some regard them as an angel, because for them, it might be a new community center for all. And also for each of those museums, they can have 2 full-time staff for the museum. One sponsored by the central government, one is sponsored by the local authority government. And also it could be a gathering place for indigenous people. And it could be a place where a lot of activities were held. So here you can see I have 3 photos here, and you can see it's a gathering for the indigenous people in this museum. And here they are kind of chopping some of the fruits, and actually they are doing some tie-dye of the clothes. And also sometimes they have a lot of exhibitions to show the community. And another example is here. So this is the Taoyuan Indigenous Museum in Kaohsiung City, and it has recovered from the landslide in the mountain area in 2009, and it began to reconnect 2 tribes in the local community through the exhibition and collecting artifacts. And with the help of those 2 full-time staff, it just opened in March 2024. So you can see after the landslide, it looks like this. And during the last 13 years, they redesigned and put a lot of resources. And this is the exhibition right now here and here. These are the traditional costume. And another one is Namasha Indigenous Museum, also in Kaohsiung. It often held a lot of educational and learning programs for local school children, and even exhibited their drawing with tribal stories. So like this is a crab, but it's in a very rural high mountain area. Why do they use the crab? And it's from their legend. And you can see a lot of students, they enjoy themselves through this lovely museum. But there will also be the downside or dark side as an alien. For example, a lot of people, the tribal people, they think the museum is a concrete building in a community. It has two meanings. It means a concrete building, but also the concrete figures. I will explain later. And also the exhibition and collecting are very unusual for the local people because they have their own way of thinking. And often those sites are irrelevant to the community, and it's focused also unrelated to the residents. So I'm going to show this example. This is the Wutai Indigenous Museum. As you can see, the architect feel he needs to show the indigenous costume or use those figures. But for the villagers, they feel very strange. It's kind of like you see a lot of people standing there, and it scares the local people, and they feel it's ugly and it's terrible. And also when I mentioned that the idea of valuable objects, for example, here on the left-hand side, it's in the museum. You can see they exhibit the three costumes. But on the right-hand side, it's local people. The local people think if things are valuable, they will keep those valuable things at home, not in the museum. And whenever their friends, their relative came, they can just show them the most valuable, beautiful things instead of bring them to the museum. So this is a very, very different idea. And also the sites are sometimes very irrelevant to the community. On the right-hand side, the two photos, it's actually in the city, and no tribes live near this site. So it's very, very strange. On the left-hand side, even though it's in the high mountain side, it's very far away from their village. So if they want to come to this museum, they have to drive for 5 or 10 minutes. And it's quite difficult for the local to have this sense of belonging. And also sometimes the museum, their focus is not, does not interest the community. So they don't think it's attractive. They might not going to attend those exhibition. So, and also I think for those museums, a lot of time they might lack a sense of community or a sense of belonging, a sense of identity, and there's no relation to the neighbors or neighborhood. And sometimes it could be propaganda for the civil servants. So here we can see sometimes it's like a sense of community. So nobody is visiting the museum and it becomes quite empty. And there's no sense of belonging. So they don't trust the museum, and they don't want to put their belongings to the museum. And sometimes they lose the sense of identity. So what will be their museum? It's also another issue. So as a result, 29 local indigenous museums in Taiwan, they are divided into two types, as I mentioned before. One is the urban, the other one is the rural community one. And each local indigenous museum encounter various challenges. But the role it plays is getting more significant. On the bright side, they could be like angel, but on the dark side, it could be the alien. But I think a vision for each museum is also needed. And also, I think they need a lot of support from the government. And also, they need qualified staff who can stay longer, because a lot of land, they just move after 1 year or after 6 months. And they need to build a good community relation. And also, those museums in Taiwan, if they have better resources, they can transform their role from alien to angel and contribute to the sustainability of the local cultural and natural environment. So I think I will just stop here. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. That was wonderful, and took me back to some wonderful places that I've been very fortunate enough to visit. But questions, please.
Hello everyone, I'm Rashid Mel here from Qatar Museums. My question is not specific to any of the panelists, but it's open for anyone who could answer it. You've shown us like how eco museums are contributing to community engagement, preservation of heritage, and promoting the sense of identity to the local people. But my question here is like, in a changing world, how do these eco museums or community museums are reflecting the emerging trends of challenges such as climate change, globalization, or any other conflicts that appear to the surface? How would those museums survive this changing world?
Good question. Excellent question. So, do that on behalf of Thailand.
Okay. I'll try. I think for those local indigenous museum in Taiwan, it's quite nowadays quite difficult for them. I mentioned that the central government is going to build a new national museum of indigenous people. And as you can see right now, it's 21st century. If you want to collect any artifacts from those indigenous people, how can you? Or if you finally you can collect, it might be quite new or not that valuable. So I think the challenge is how to collect the really the real object that can represent indigenous people. And I heard from some friends working in other national museums. They told me that, oh yes, we heard from a little bird that this new museum, they are not going to buy any artifacts. They just want the central government to send out how to say an order to order all the national museum to give their own artifacts of indigenous people, and it will cause a lot of trouble because you know the ownership and also I think for those my friends in those national museums, they care about the new museum. Do they have the ability to take care of those artifacts? Otherwise, it will be a danger. And so I think probably that will be one of the issue came to my mind right now. I hope I answer your question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a really excellent question in that, you know, I think museums and community museums are getting much more involved with the idea of the Sustainable Development Goals. I think everyone's taking those on board and trying to see how they can alter their practices and get engaged with their communities to try to move towards greater sustainability. But it's a difficult journey. But museums, I think, have got a very important role to play because they're so close to their communities. You know, they can put across messages, they can get people involved. So they're doing things, if you like, on the ground, because in many ways, I think reactions to climate change, okay, we've seen things happening at a high level in government and in nations, but in effect, to try to resolve some of these problems, they have to happen on the ground. They have to be within communities where people are. So that would be my answer, but I'm sure there are other responses.
Thank you. I have a language question. How many of this indigenous community have own language? Is this language is still alive, or there is only as a memory, as a Gaelic?
Thank you for your valuable question. Yes, the 16 tribes, indigenous people in Taiwan, they still speak their own language. Even though there are more tribes in the written documents, but a lot of them, they already forgotten their language. One of the very popular example right now is in Tainan. It's called Xilaya tribe. They every year during the Mid-Autumn Festival, they have a ceremony. The women they hold their hand and in a circle and they sing a song with lyric, but they don't understand. They don't know what the meaning of the lyric. It's just the tune, and they singing for all night. And there are some people try to re-establish the language, but it's quite difficult. Yeah. So the 16 of them, they have their own language. They are still use their own language, even though many people they are still afraid those language might dying out quite soon because the one of the 16 language is only used in a village. So people are still afraid maybe after 10 years the language will be gone. So but hopefully the government will put a lot of resources to keep their language ongoing. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you very quick. Maybe this one. Okay. As you can see on the right-hand side, the top photo is called Chahamu, and because they use the language but they don't have written word, so it's used alphabetic spelling. Yeah, so to spell the sound. Yeah, and the reason I mentioned that one in Tainan they try to revive or reestablish their language because during the 18th century, some of the missionary they came to Tainan and they do a marvelous job to have a Xilaya Bible. They try to use these words to reestablish the original language, but I don't know if it works. Hopefully, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for attending this first session. We have another one coming up in about half an hour or so, but can we take this opportunity just to thank our 4 speakers from this morning, because it's been a great session. Thank you very much indeed.